Welcome to New Wave Global. You are watching Unraveled with Marvi Sirmed, where we dissect and unravel pressing issues that shape our region and beyond. Today, our focus is one of the most critical challenges of our time, the climate crisis in South Asia. As we speak, millions of people in Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan are struggling to breathe. The smog problem, particularly in Dhaka, Delhi, and Lahore, has reached crisis levels, with air quality index readings in the hazardous zone for weeks. These are among the worst AQI levels globally, a grim reminder of how pollution and climate change are no longer future threats, but present realities. This crisis is not just a national issue for any one country. It's a shared regional challenge that demands a collective response. To explore this, we are joined by Pragyan Srivastava, a distinguished journalist and environmental advocate whose recent piece in Sapan News on the climate crisis offers an incisive analysis of how interconnected our vulnerabilities are and why South Asia must unite to tackle them. Pragyan, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, Marvi. And yeah, it's pleasure to be here for me as well. And I wrote about the shared climate crisis across South Asia recently. Sapa News Network, which is a
Yeah,
syndicated news service which provides honest and non-partisan articles
okay.
on
Yeah,
South Asian diaspora. So so we all
that's
need
so. And that's
each other.
Tapan is doing, I must say, excellent work on that count, not just on environmental issues, but on plethora of other issues that bring South Asian communities together. And congratulations for that. It's an excellent work, I must say.
Thank
So,
you.
Pragyan, let's dive right in. What is at the heart of South Asia's climate crisis, and why has regional cooperation remained elusive despite the urgency?
That's true. So South Asia's interconnected ecosystem, they demand policies as interlinked as its geography. For instance, the deadly smog currently the deadly smog crisis currently going in Delhi and Lahore. So 75% of Delhi's air pollution during winter comes from its regional sources, including crop residue burning in Punjab, both in India and Pakistan. To tackle this, South Asian clean air agreement, something like that, could be helpful. In South Asia, several countries they share water bodies and those kind of system management system where we could uh, share the water across the country with catering the needs of the nations. So
Yeah.
another important measure if we talk about the air pollution could be
Mm,
a unified air quality framework. Uh,
mm,
the smog in Delhi also choking Lahore, and
yeah.
pollutants from one country that drift from another country as well. South Asian countries need to collaborate on reducing emission and share real time data through a real monitoring system.
Yeah, these are some very important points, and it's surprising why these are not being addressed already. So, what do you think are the primary obstacles hindering the effective regional cooperation on climate change, and how it, especially in South Asia, and how might these be overcome?
I think the biggest hurdle is the political mistrust,
Hmm.
especially countries like India and Pakistan.
Yeah, in Pakistan,
Yeah, this often blocks
unfortunate.
dialogue, even on issues that affects everyone, including climate crisis. For example, the last ARC summit was held in 2014, with little progress since then. Without functional platforms like SARC and any other inter body, Even critical issues like the air quality crisis affecting over 400 million people in northern part of South Asia, Indo Gangetic plain, that remain undiscussed, unaddressed. But
Hmm.
as we see, I think there is a little hope as well. For example, when India sent aid to Nepal in 2015 earthquake, that show that cooperation is possible during crisis. So I think we should be building on these movements of goodwill to push for long-term environmental partnerships.
Hmm.
And I think to overcome, we would need the people-to-people the diplomacy, regional youth exchanges, climate programs, and academic collaboration can foster trust. Uh, Agencies like SARC or a revamped body, any other revamped body, could also host climate specific summits. I think another obstacle is funding. South Asia's climate financial gap is massive. Alone, India would need around $20.6 trillion by 2070 to meet the net zero targets. These are the main issues, and I think for the funding thing, we can solve this by establishing something like a South Asia Climate Fund,
Hmm.
managed by neutral entities like Asian Development Bank, where finances could be shared with the projects like renewable energy, grids, and disaster relief.
Yeah, that's very important. And um, in your article, you also write about, you have mentioned the journalist forum, South Asian Journalist Forum, that is focused on climate change issues and reporting on those issues. So, in your view, how can journalists and media outlets in South Asia enhance public awareness and influence policy regarding climate change?
Journalists have a huge role to play.
Mm.
First, we all need human stories. We need to tell the human stories instead of just stating the statistics. Let's show how rising sea levels force Bangladeshi farmers to migrate, or how
Yeah.
smog impacts children in Lahore.
Mm.
For instance, we are talking about the South Asia Climate Change Journalist Forum. That the summit was happened this month in October. That recently highlighted how floods in Nepal displaced entire villages, linking it to deforestation and poor
Mm.
due to poor infrastructure planning. Second thing, I think collaborative journalism across border is key.
Mm.
A great example I recently saw was there's a web portal covering climate now. That's a global initiative where outlets team up for impactful reporting. Imagine something similar for South Asia. For example, the Scroll in India, Dawn in Pakistan, and other media outlets from different countries, they unite together and they do that impactful reporting where we also hold leaders accountable, and we where we can write op-eds and which could pressure policymaker to act on climate promises, because lots of promises are made already. The media also can transform how we see climate change by focusing on solutions journalism. For
Mm.
example, instead of just reporting on Himalayan melting glaciers, let's
Mm.
also cover how local communities are adapting with new farming techniques
Yeah,
using data
excellent idea.
visualizations.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we think about it? I mean, this is what journalism should be about. Telling
True.
stories of the people who can't speak up for themselves. Yeah. So,
Also, yeah.
and this
So
I hear you, and I think the key is, as you said in the earlier answering the earlier question also, that people to people contact is so important, and collaborative journalism would thrive on that also.
That is true, and also nowadays we have great data visualization tools, so we could use we could incorporate those things in our reports. For example, like Global Carbon Atlas, there is a web tool where that helps showing emission trends across borders, making abstract issues very relatable, because we talk about okay smog, but when we talk about the data and we will be able to visualize and then present to our audience, then they will get to know, look, like this is that the clock is already ticking down. So those things we can, as journalists, we can do.
Yes, absolutely. We should do. I mean, journalists should, the journalists listening to this, I hope they get some inspiration from you for doing that kind of thing. And I think a lot of journalists are doing already trying there really hard to do that, do these stories, especially from, India. We come across so many stories, and from Karachi, Pakistan, coastal areas, we have come across these stories, the fishermen folk and other stories. So, but we really need to build on that and need to expand that. And thank you very much for doing from the Suffer News platform. So, could you, Pragyan, discuss the particular challenges that these marginalized communities in South Asia face? You have mentioned some, but just to build on that, just to expand on that, these stories, these challenges due to climate change, and what target interventions are necessary to support them?
um I feel marginalized groups face triple vulnerabilities. One is social, economic, and environmental. For instance, Dalit in flood prone Bihar. Every time flood comes, and they are often excluded from the relief due to caste discrimination, the huge caste discrimination in Bihar. While and also I mentioned this thing in my report, the Great Nicobar Transshipment Hub, the Indian government's very important corporate project. It is the indigenous Nicobari tribes are losing their ancestral lands, and it is threatening around 130 square kilometer of pristine forest. We are talking about Andaman and Nicobar island group. Uh, so these things are we need to talk more and more, and women, especially in rural South Asia, they are impacted badly with the climate crisis. When cyclone Sidr in Bangladesh in 2007, when that cyclone hit, data
Mm,
is more than around 80% of those displaced were women, due to cultural norms restricting their mobility. So
mhm,
these are some issues, and we need to, as journalists, as policymakers, as people who are who are the advocates of the conservation of these things. I
mm,
think those intervention can help. For example, Bangladesh's cyclone preparedness program now
mm,
includes women led early warning systems. That has happened. That is Bangladesh is doing that, which have
mm,
saved thousands of lives, because Bangladesh is a cyclone prone area.
mm,
And the coastal floods. Similarly, in India, there is a initiative called Solar Mama. Solar Mama, it trains rural women in solar technology, so that it creates a livelihood. Also, it reduces the dependency on the fossil fuel.
mhm,
Also, I think community driven initiatives like rainwater harvesting projects, which has been in our culture, in our ancient culture as well, or mangrove restoration programs that also provide livelihoods in those remote areas, remote rural and indigenous areas. Also, interventions work best when communities are involved in shaping them, I guess. Take the Chilka Lake project in Odisha, India.
Yeah.
That is an eastern state of India, where
Mm.
locals collaborated with the government to revive the lake, the Chilka Lake. That thing not only boosted the biodiversity around the Chilka Lake, but also improved the livelihoods, because those are local for vocal for local thing. So our governments need to work on those things instead of just using them in their manifestos, in their verbal agendas, but to act on them.
Yeah, absolutely. In India, this climate change activism uh, women started that with Chipko movement
Yeah,
last
Sister
century,
Anjali.
So we have, our region has some very rich, history of doing that kind of activism. So, Pragyan, are there any, you talk about in your report, in Sapan News, you have um, emphasized on the excuse me, you have emphasized on the regional collaborations. So are there any examples of successful regional collaborations or such initiatives in South Asia that have effectively addressed this, some of the climate related issues?
Actually, I can think of some. And one of the most iconic successful ventures, Indus Water Treaty.
Mm,
Uh, Beyond the wars, it is the best example of cooperation, even between rivals like India and Pakistan. Despite wars, that treaty has held, providing the collaboration and water to these area. Another example I could think of is RIMS, Regional Integrated Multi-Hazard Early Warning System, which
mm,
helped improve cyclone forecasting in Bangladesh. We were talking about
mm,
the programs Bangladesh has created to predict the cyclones, and it has helped. Also, Asian Development Bank (ADB) also supports some regional climate projects such as funding for renewable energy transition in Nepal and Sri Lanka. Uh, so um, I I also recall recently in Bhutan, India, and Nepal, they launched a joint initiative under the Himalayan Hydroenergy Cooperation Plan, focusing on shared hydropower development. So I think such collaboration, they not just only enhance sharing, but also
mm.
reduce dependency on fossil fuel. So yeah, I think there are many examples. Another with our journalism front, the South Asian Climate Change Journalist Forum, which annual convention was in October. Yeah, that is another thing, and I think BIMSTEC, though it's a economic platform, but it could lead with the climate crisis, because the climate crisis is affecting our economies. So there's several examples we could look for.
Absolutely. All these, minilateral and multilateral forums that are being created and that are, that are gaining momentum in the current geopolitical situation. BRICS, One, Quad, SEO. I think it will be great if all of these forums make it a essential part of their agenda to discuss climate change issues. My final question to you, Pragyan, would be, what are your projections for the future if South Asian countries fail to adopt a unified approach to climate change? And conversely, we can also say what positive outcomes could arise from successful regional cooperation?
Yeah, so this question made me feel sad and me half hopeful at the same time, because yeah, the stakes are high,
Yeah.
and if we fail to act collectively, South Asia fails to act collectively, the consequences will dire. Sea levels are rising 3.3 mm per year. So we have coastal cities like Dhaka, Karachi, and
And
cities in
Maldives,
Sri Lanka. Yeah, in
in
Maldives.
your article, Maldives is the most critical.
Yes,
It says that it's just some of the islands just a meter higher than the sea level.
exactly. There are risks that island will be vanishing from the map. And also Bangladesh, where the cyclone and coastal floods they keep coming. There is an estimation by 2050 around 13 million Bangladeshi could be displaced due to submersion of low-lying areas.
Mm,
At the same time, with the high level of water, there are droughts situation in many part of India and Pakistan. So that could bring the severe water shortages. Also, that is already creating the climate refugees. There's a big problem in inter countries diplomacies there, where climate refugees are becoming a big issue, big agenda. Um, we are all are feeling the global warming globally, but the rising temperature in the Indo Gangetic plain that could reduce the wheat crops by up to 17% 2050, and that is the, I think, staple grain of northern part of
yeah.
Himalayan subrange. Uh, Also, glacier. We are hearing we keep hearing that glacier are melting, and that could cut water supplies for around 1.65 billion people. Uh, Also, these things are directly uh, hurting our economies. We are these things are hurting our GDPs. So yeah, this is overwhelming when we are talking about these things which which we feel are very near in future. Some of them we are already feeling, we are suffering from. So yeah, the situations are overwhelming, everything is alarming.
Yeah.
However, on the flip side, if these unified efforts could turn South Asia into a global model for climate resilience.
Yeah.
Investment in shared solar energy grids, because we have huge lands where we could use the solar power, cross border afforestation drives, and disaster response mechanism. Because in my article to one scholar from Pakistan, Hirawajat Malik, she actually talked in detail about the poor and outdated weather prediction system. Uh,
Mm,
so we need to fix on the, because
absolutely.
we already have those resources. We just need to upgrade them. So yeah,
Absolutely. And work
those
work
kind of
together
things.
on that. Yeah, it's a horrifying picture, although I mean, if we don't act, and it would be a shame if we don't act, if this region don't doesn't act, because there are two countries who are nuclear equipped, and in this region, and it would be unfortunate if this region suffers that much because of the so many other issues, plus the lack of funding, as you mentioned. So the key, as Pragyan has repeatedly mentioned in her article and in this interview as well, is collaboration, 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 working together, telling stories, human stories, and collaborative journalism, people-to-people contact, all of this, which we keep discussing otherwise for peacemaking, for human rights, but this is the existential issue. And for this, if not for human rights, we need to this, because this is the greatest human right ever, right to exist, right to breathe, right to live. So we hope that the policymakers would hear and read some of the work that Pragyan and the journalists like her are producing. Pragyan, thank you very much for the time you've given us, and we will keep bothering you to tell your stories and amplify your stories through this platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Marvi, and you are an inspiration for South Asian women. I have heard a lot about you, about your resilience, or about your Bhagavat. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on your show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.